For those unfamiliar, all 7 of you, Slay the Spire is the reason poor old Steam's catalog needs the industry equivalent of cognitive behavioral therapy. That is, to kick its unhealthy obsession with roguelike deck builders. Now, despite what many people think, it wasn't the first. But Dream Quest was a novelty. Slay the Spire transformed gaming and spiked the drinks of all the indie devs hoping their little imitation will be the next big thing. But if anyone had the chops, it was Slay the Spire's own Megacrit, and we have them to thank for continuing its legacy. I've always felt that a wildly successful game in early access should have all the time and capital in the world to deliver a fully realized sequel from the get-go, and that they shouldn't be using a feature meant to lower the barrier for entry as a crutch to justify not doing so. But Slay the Spire owes its cultural significance to the droves of valuable community feedback, with a kudos to them for listening, that fashioned it into a phenomenon. So Megacrit, assuming you're not too big for your boots this time around, I trust you. And, you know, unlike most games early into early access, this one might just be worth a buy from the start. Slay the Spire 2 is an iterative sequel. It is everything the first was, but more and better. I like to delineate between iteration and innovation and stress that both approaches can make great games. There is, however, a bit of an innovation here. I didn't just stumble upon the original, I learned of it through an offhand recommendation from a mate. So naturally, we'd talk about the game. I remember how often we'd wish it were co-op, that we'd both play it so much more if it was. So much so that we'd go on to play games like Across the Obelisk just to scratch that itch. In case you haven't heard, Slay the Spire 2 is co-op. 4-player co-op. Now that mate took a different path on the journey to where I am now, but luckily I managed to touch just enough grass to snag a girlfriend along the way, and we've been having a blast. Co-op is balanced exactly as you'd think it would be. The more players there are, the tougher and tankier the enemies. Given how early we are in the game's life cycle, it is astounding that it's this polished. However, there is some nuance to the discussion. There are cards that trivialize the experience, like Piercing Whale, as both buffs and debuffs affect all players. You can now build for cards like these and rely on other players for damage. There is no longer much of a trade-off to wasting energy on a card that does none, but the experience may also trivialize the cards, like Hemokinesis. Trading 2 HP and 1 energy for 15 damage is a decent trade-off in single player, but a card like this does not scale with the enemy's health bar. For example, 15 damage to 30 HP is half that health bar, but 15 damage to 4 times the health is a measly 1/8. There are multiplayer centric cards in the mix as well, like Believe in You, a 0-cost card that gives another player a whopping 3 energy and doesn't exhaust. I don't have to tell you how that might get a little overpowered. Now, it wouldn't be fair of me to leave out the fact that every single one of these cards impact a party of 4 differently to a party of 2. Hemokinesis may be worth a shot with double the health scaling as opposed to quadruple. Piercing Whale mightn't be as low risk to build for with only 1 player to pick up the slack, and Believe in You has the same caveat. While we're on the subject of balance, which is impressive overall, there are a few elites and or bosses of note that may need a little tuning. Maybe a semitone or two. For example, the Entomancer absolutely ravages your deck with a dazed card straight to your draw pile every single time he's hit. This can increase to 2 or 3 unplayable cards for each attack. This guy's a piece of cake for characters that gravitate towards high damage cards, but a fucking piece of work for characters that rely on lots of chip damage, because before they know it, they'll have 57 unplayable cards in their draw pile and can no longer play the game. Thankfully, in my experience, these are pretty few and far between, and certainly a crease to be ironed out post-launch. Swinging back around to co-op, there are a few fun quirks I can't forget to mention before I close off that discussion. Like, you can see each other's cursors, they even turn into hands trying to grab the relic you want if you find a treasure chest. And you can draw on the map, which goes about the way you'd expect. For me, I was the one drawing dicks, but it's useful for planning where you'd like to go, ahead of the choice after every encounter. I don't think I expected co-op to be bad or anything, though I admit I couldn't have predicted how polished the addition is. It is not a tack-on, and the loop is elevated by its inclusion. It is only elevated even further by a returning and new cast of characters. The Ironclad and the Silent make a return. The Defect is here, but he broke up with Mrs. Defect, I think, because he's getting fucking yoked. There are 2 completely new additions to the roster. The Regent, an arrogant, star-headed alien monarch, Poetically, his playstyle is focused on managing his star count as a secondary energy source, allowing him to play far more powerful cards. And he can forge the powerful Sovereign Blade, with forge-specific cards adding to its damage mid-combat. Then there's the Necrobinder. Technically fragile, but through her cute little reanimated skeleton hand, Osti, she can become pretty tanky. Her playstyle lets her pet do all the dirty work. She can summon to increase his health, and she will only be damaged once he's dead, though she can bring him back at any time. The Necrobinder can also apply a status effect called Doom, which executes an enemy if their health bar is at or below their Doom stat. And she can use 0 cost souls to draw an insane amount of cards. Our returning characters are tweaked to handle the new challenge, but these are the most game-changing additions and as a result end up being the most powerful. They're both measured and great fun to play, with many avenues to take when it comes to deck building. The roster is also expanded upon, albeit in a limited way currently, as well, actual characters. The original was very light on lore. This one seeks to change that. Players can unlock mini lore dumps alongside the expected relics, potions, and even new friends to meet in the new epochs. While I don't think we're sticking around for the story, I find it more engaging to have something of substance to dive into, even if I never do. When it comes to pure iteration, Megacrit have gone above and beyond to complexify the game itself and its presentation. There are more cards, relics, and potions, obviously, but more elites, bosses, and events too. If you're jealous that the Necrobinder gets a pet and you don't, well, take this bird egg and hatch it at a rest site. Do you have a Minesweeper addiction like my girlfriend does? Well, here it basically is in the game. Look, I admit there is a ton of content, but there is also definitely not enough to justify a full release. So it can look like they're using early access as a crutch, like I'm personally against. As I said in the introduction, I think this is a measured attempt to recreate the community that made the first game what it is instead of that crutch. So I said the original was light on lore, but it wasn't only that. It was pretty light on all things in the art department too. For good reason, but it definitely had a simple-like look. Megacrit has given Slay the Spire the makeover it always deserved. Money talks, and the game looks fantastic. Card art is beautiful and detailed, their color work is incredible, enemies, characters, and bosses see that same uptick in fidelity, and their designs are far more interesting because of it. The background art is the unsung hero of the bunch, as is the UI. There's a world of detail unlocked to keep us immersed as we play. I particularly like that you can see all of the players lounging around the campfire at the rest sites, and I love that there's a whole new set of characters like Niao called Ancients that give you sweet treats at the beginning of every act. But their presentation is leagues upon leagues above the first game. I'm talking like $2 steak to $200 steak. That is essentially what this game is. Slay the Spire was a damn good steak. Medium rare, juicy, some creamy peppercorn sauce, but the sear wasn't quite as pretty and there wasn't a whole lot on the plate. Slay the Spire 2 is medium rare, sous vide, reverse seared to perfection, pepper crusted, a delicious cognac peppercorn sauce with some lemon olive oil pan fried green beans and almonds on the side, and a nice glass of wine maybe, some mashed potato. I'm thinking like a side of honey roasted carrots, and I'll get the white and dark chocolate lava cake for dessert. Thanks. Anyways, but it's still a steak. A much improved steak for sure, and there are a few friends on the plate, but it is essentially the same game. Better. If you wanted a pizza, you're not going to find it here, but I think you should have expected that when you sauntered on into a steak restaurant, you know? I think iterative sequels are the lifeblood of gaming, and though public sentiment is super duper positive, don't get me wrong, I still see whispers of it being the same game but better, like that's a bad thing. Ghost of Yotei saw a little more of this critique, and I had just the same answer then. Innovation is a great thing. And if you can, you should. But it's not like I've only been to a steak restaurant once. I didn't eat my first steak and think, well, on to the next completely unique dish until I die of starvation because there aren't enough dishes in the world for the 30,000 fucking days in the average human lifespan. I probably ate my second steak about 4 minutes later. Point is, I like steak, and the game is a bunch of fun too. I really do recommend it. It's only going to get better, and there's only going to be more and more to make every run feel just as fresh as the first one. And I think they've already made strides on that front. I'm very optimistic for this one, and I think I'll come back to it very often for years and years to come. Hey, if you're still with me, I'm James. If you happen to enjoy the video, please do consider dropping a sub. I promise I am in it for the long run. Thanks!